We started out this morning with the partnership's release of their report on U.S. funding for African agricultural development, and very notably, the resources for agriculture, particularly through USAID, were highly constrained over the last number of years, actually probably going back 20 years, due to other priorities. But AID has tried very hard to maintain an engagement in agricultural development because we do think it is still vitally important in an area where the U.S. has a lot of experience to bring to bear. And probably the place where we've been most active, even during these lean years, was in Africa. In addition to aligning our bilateral assistance, we participate in the establishment of the CADA Multi-Donor Trust Fund to support the African Union, NEPAD, and the regional economic communities as they looked to further the CADA process. Specifically, I would like to emphasize a really serious commitment to the country-led development process. The strategy outlines three areas or three levels of resource commitment. The country level, investing in country-led strategies, but also investing in regional and, to some extent, global investments, particularly in the area of agricultural research. But really, it is that country-driven process that is given supremacy, and the regional and the global investments are there to support progress at the country level. To really build that leadership and enable that leadership, the U.S. is proposing to support strategy development in two phases, or the country-led process in two phases. The first is sort of a pre-planned development phase. And this reflects the recognition that not all countries, even in Africa, have a compact in hand, have a strategy they're ready to implement, or have the capacity necessary to even lead the development of that process. There'll be a lot of emphasis on building the capacity not only of governments, but also of important actors in the private sector and civil society who will be critical for the success. For those countries who are ready to go, who have demonstrated their own commitment, who've met their 10% benchmark, who've put in place an enabling environment that demonstrates significant opportunity for growth, the U.S. would then commit to a much higher level of resources to really implement that plan. And clearly a number of African countries through the CADA process are at that point and represent a great opportunity for the U.S. to get started very quickly. The U.S. is truly committed to something more than nice statements by the president at the G8 meeting. The U.S. has really been pushing forward to get an agreement, a broader agreement on a set of general principles, and then most importantly to get action moving at the country level. So that's really the focus of our attention right now, is how do we take that principles and get things moving with countries who are ready to step up to the plate and lead the effort. The U.S. is really focused on mobilizing the resources that were committed in the G8 or by the African governments themselves to bank those plans that are ready to go, or to further the development of those that still need additional assistance. I think another challenge for us is how do we engage international partners meaningfully in a country-led process? But the international community also wants to contribute to this effort, and how are we going to find ways to engage the international private sector, international organizations, international civil society or NGOs who want to very much contribute to this? Are we making available a process at the country level that is accessible to them, that gives them, reduces the transaction costs perhaps of interacting with a whole lot of countries and trying to figure out how to meaningfully contribute to that? Another area that the U.S. has been giving a lot of thought to is how do we align multilateral institutions? The UN High-Level Task Force, the World Bank, FAO have all been part of our discussion and outreach at the G8 meeting, at the UNGA, and many others, because we're very important, we've made a very important commitment as one of the core principles to increase investment through multilateral institutions as playing an important role in contributing to this effort. But we need to do that in a way that still backs a country-driven process and doesn't create a parallel system at the global level through either the donor community or the multilateral institutions themselves. So how is it that we align those resources behind the country-driven process? And lastly, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, which I was asked to address, I think one of the real challenges is we're just starting to think this through, and in fact are having a interagency workshop as we speak in Washington to try to develop a much more robust and evidence-based approach to monitoring and evaluation. How is it that we balance U.S. accountability to our policymakers, to the administration, to Congress, to our general public, with being committed to engaging in a multinational or a global effort? How do we build upon and contribute to a process that goes way beyond the U.S. effort and helps inform decisions made by all the actors at the country level, whether it's the government themselves, regional organizations, or multilateral institutions?